Very excited to be here tonight. We haven't done a webinar in a little while, a couple of months anyway, and it is January. It's definitely time to share some information and share some expertise, and that's what we're here to do. It's all about sharing and sending out more information to the community and getting that conversation going. So that's why we're here tonight. Let us begin. For those of you who have just joined us, my name is Ruth Rumack, and I am the Executive Director of Education and the founder of Ruth Rumack's Learning Space. And today we are very, very excited to have Catherine Scratch with us, who is one of our Associate Directors of Education and has been a long-term assistive technology teacher and shares all of her great knowledge with our staff and with our students as well. So we're really excited to have Catherine chatting with us today. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Ruth.
There she is. Let's start by, I'm going to set out some ground rules, let's say, for tonight. We're going to talk about many, many things. Many of you have sent in your questions ahead of time, which is really terrific, and we will be taking time to address those questions. Most of the questions are answered in the presentation, but if you do have a question, then I would encourage you to put it in the chat box, and at the end of each section, we will have a chance to address those questions, and then we'll leave time for questions at the end as well. So you can pick our brains when we're all done.
Ruth,
Catherine.
yes. I think we'd prefer in the question and answer box.
I said chat, didn't I? Thank you. See, that's why she's so terrific, because she's on top of it. Question and answer box. Let me say that again. If you have questions as we go along, put them in the question and answer box, and that way we will be able to address them at the end of each section before we move on to the next one. All right, see, she's on top of it. I love it. Let us begin. Before we start, let's just see where everybody is from and where they're at. Maybe if you would like to put in the chat box where you are located. Are you calling from Toronto? Are you outside of the GTA? Are you outside of Canada? We never know where we've got participants from. Oh, we've got somebody from Etobicoke, Kiara. Thanks for joining us. And Toronto beaches area. Oh, those lovely beaches. Must be chilly there right now. And where else have we got? More from Toronto. And I would also say, if you want to put in the chat box the ages of the kids that you are thinking of when you're joining us, or maybe it's for yourself and you're interested in assistive technology for yourself at this point. So we've got one participant, 17, 12. That's great. We'll probably have a wide range. We've got a 10-year-old and somebody for themselves. I saw 7 and 13, 11, 18. So we've got a wide range of ages, and that's wonderful, because assistive technology is something that really spans the generations, and it's something that everybody can use, and there are different things that you can use at different times. All right, let's get to it, Catherine.
All right. I will move us to the next slide.
All right, that's me. Here I am. So just for those of you who don't know about us, Ruth Rumack's Learning Space, we are an academic support center. We have a direct instruction pedagogy, which means that we work one-on-one with our students, and we really try and scaffold our learning. So it's not about assuming that a student comes in with a whole load of prior knowledge. We're going to start at the beginning, and we're going to work very slowly, or at that student's pace, to make sure that they fill in all the pieces that they need before they can move on to the next stage. All of our teachers are certified teachers, and they work with us full time. And most of our instruction is one-to-one. Right now we are online. We made a real big pivot at almost a year ago now, and we were able to take what we normally do in person, one-to-one, and in small groups, and take that same pedagogy and that same philosophy of keeping things active, multimodal, multisensory, using as much activity, game-based work as possible, and turning it into something that was accessible online. It was no small feat, but I have to say that our incredible team of teachers came up with some really amazing opportunities, both in the AT side of things and in other software and other online things that we were able to use. Interactive whiteboards. We're able to create our own games and play interactively with students as we do our lessons. It's been quite an amazing an amazing journey, I would say. Wouldn't you say, Catherine? Just
Yeah,
what we've learned in the last 8 months?
yes. A journey
Totally.
indeed. Yeah.
A journey. It's been a journey, and it's still a journey. So we're still able to provide that same type of multimodal and multisensory direct instruction, but we've been able to streamline it so that we can do it online as well, with really a great high degree of efficacy and success. All right, let's move on. So we are here to talk about assistive technology. And assistive technology is really something that can level the playing field. In fact, more than level the playing field, it can be a game changer for many, many, many students and adults as well. One of this slide talks about the idea of universal design and technology. And the idea of universal design is that if it's good for one person, even if it's a person that has a very particular need, if it's good for that person, most likely it's good for everybody. And that's the idea of universal design, where if it fits in one category, open it up and let everybody use it and make it part of what we do on a regular basis. So I like this slide because I think I like it so much because I identify with the shortest person on that in the equality box. The shortest person, me being 5 foot nothing, height challenged, certainly, for reaching things on that top shelf and seeing over people at the movie theaters. I totally identify with being able to be on the same level as everybody else, but it's still not enough. And I can't see over the fence if I'm on the same size box as the person who's 6'4". So if we move to the middle box and we talk about equity, we are looking at, okay, so give me an extra box. Great. Now all of our heads are at the same level and we can all see over the fence at the same time. But true accessibility is when you remove all of those barriers and everybody gets to experience that situation, that learning moment, or just that moment in life at the same level. And that's what we're aiming for with assistive technology, which is allowing everybody to access life and studies and new knowledge at the same level. Let's take a look at the next one. So what is assistive technology, or we call it AT, in education? It has a slightly different meaning in education because when you are diagnosed with a particular learning challenge, you at that point have certain things that are open to you, and that certain advantages, accommodations, sometimes modifications that will be made for your needs. So the assistive technology in a classroom setting supports students to work around their challenges in order for them to learn better, to be able to communicate what they know, and then share that, with their teachers and their peers. The other thing that I think is quite remarkable in terms of where we are in the world right now is that there is so much assistive technology around us all the time. And in fact, we are all using assistive technology on a daily basis. When you pick up your smartphone and you talk your email instead of typing it, that's assistive technology. And when we are able to dictate our thoughts, when we're able to use a reader to help us hear the words instead of reading them with our eyes, we're all using that kind of technology on a regular basis. So it's everywhere around us, which on another level really makes it easier for everybody to access, but especially those people who need it most and who it's going to make the most impact for.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's look on.
And in fact, speaking to universal design, Ruth, the TDSB has Read and Write, which is one of the assistive technology programs we love, that's free to anybody in the TDSB. So you don't have to have any type of diagnosis or an IEP in place. It's available to you. So that's lovely.
Miriam Drucker also just said smart speakers. Absolutely. The fact that we can speak out loud and tell our homes what to do is assistive technology. You're absolutely right. So let's talk about early intervention. And I think a lot of parents, perhaps when they first receive a diagnosis that their child has a particular learning challenge or a learning need, they're not sure what to do with it. They certainly don't want to stop their child from being successful, but they're sometimes concerned that when you put in this assistive technology, that it will actually become a crutch and take away from their ability to learn new things as they go on. Well, all of the research would say, I can't say all, but the most research would say that early intervention is best. And this is what we see at Ruth Rumack's Learning Space all the time, that when a child comes in with particular needs and they've been challenged in a certain area and it's very frustrating for them, and they are smart kids and they're capable kids, but they're not able to show what they know in a classroom situation, giving them the assistive technology opens up their worlds. And it allows them to, like I said before, compete on an even playing field. And in sometimes, even though, you know, you may think that it's holding somebody back because they're not going to learn the skill that everybody else is learning or in the way that everybody else is learning it, they are still able to participate fully and sometimes far exceed your expectations when they're given this type of assistive technology. So I would say that when we look at, is it too early to start something? Is it too early to start learning how to type or using voice to text software? I would say it's not too early if it's helpful. If it's frustrating and they're not ready for it yet, maybe we wait a little bit or we have to scale it back a bit. But overall, I think a parent who wants their child to be successful wants to give them every tool that they can. So why not? Why not start at the beginning? Let's take a look at the next thing. Do you want to add anything to that, Catherine?
No, you synthesized it well. Yeah.
All right, I'm moving on. So how does it actually help? Well, we've talked a little bit about this already, that it allows a student to show what they know. It allows a student to actually believe in themselves. And I think that this is the most important thing, and this is what we see an awful lot of. When a child comes to us who has not been able to participate in the way that their classmates participate, they don't feel good about themselves. They don't feel good about their abilities. But when they're able to say what they're talking about instead of have to write it down and go through the thought process of spelling and you know, putting pen to paper, it opens something up for them that they're now able to speak their ideas, and that they see their ideas materialize on the screen. They can then go back and edit those and then feel very accomplished and proud of what they've done. You know, we've seen many situations where for the very first time, like that's a special moment for us as educators, I think, when we are witness to that first moment of, oh my God, I can do this. Those are my words. That's what I wanted to say. Whereas that child might have had several years of censoring themselves and not putting themselves out there, not raising their hand, not showing their work, not being proud of their work because it wasn't really reflecting who they were from the inside. So I would say that when we use assistive technology, it minimizes those weaknesses and accentuates and capitalizes on a child's strengths. And as we've talked about, it's that confidence that we're really building the confidence and the feeling that they can do it and they can do it independently. Not at first, perhaps. They need to be taught how to use the assistive technology. That's where somebody like us comes in, or, you know, just getting familiar with the technology. There's a learning curve, certainly. But that moment when they realize that these are my words, these are my thoughts, this is my effort, and I'm showing this on my own, in my own terms, that's priceless. I love that moment. All right, let's look at the next one. Oh, but Catherine, I think you did want to say something about italics.
Yes, thank you for jogging my memory. I think I wanted to mention that a lovely anecdote that I had from teaching was that I had a student who was listening to text to speech in order to increase her reading comprehension, and she had no idea. She said to me, you know, Catherine, I had no idea what italics meant until I was following along and listening to the emphasis that was placed on the word. She didn't realize that it meant emphasis. And the best thing that happened was that she started using italics in her creative writing that very lesson. So it's those little pieces that our students with you know, any print-based LDs that, you know, technology can really unlock a lot of doors for them, which is just so wonderful to be part of.
And we're going to see a little bit more, some examples of students' actual work before they use the assistive technology and then after the assistive technology as well. All right, so I'm going to open it up very briefly. If there's anybody who has questions about the introduction to text to, not to text to speech, to assistive technology overall, put that in the question and answer, and we will field those questions. But if we don't have questions yet, that's okay. We're going to move on to text to speech. That's what we're here for.
That's right. So text-to-speech is really beneficial for students with language-based learning differences. It's been found to help improve sight reading and decoding skills, as well as improving comprehension. And we use it a lot with our students here, regardless of diagnosis. I actually use it a lot when I'm editing, in order to just keep my focus. For a lot of our students with focus and attention issues, it can be really helpful. So it's really a technology that is quite pervasive. There are a lot of options out there. There's a lot of software that you can download. There are built-ins on most computers, tablets, iPads, and then we have a really fabulous program that's web-based that we love using with our students. That's Read and Write for Google Chrome, and we will talk about that further on this slide.
I want to jump in there just for people who don't know that phrase, text to speech. Let's take it back a step. Text to speech is where you speak and your words show up on the screen. It's like somebody's dictating, or you are dictating to the computer, and then the words come up so that they can. No, that's not right.
Yeah, it's the other way around, which is why I call that one dictation now. So text to speech. Sorry, Ruth. Text to speech. I should back up. Text to speech is when a computer or a software can read the text on the screen to you, and the best ones highlight the words as they go. And so you'll notice that in the demonstration with Read and Write, that it highlights the words for you, which is known to increase sight word vocabulary, as well as reading comprehension and focus. Audiobooks are another example, a much more engaging example of text to speech, because they're often read by actual humans, but I've been seeing a lot of text to speech embedded in websites. For example, on news organizations, often they have the article set up so that if anyone with any type of accessibility issues can still access that article. And so the more that that's happening in the world, the better. So I'll just give this little demonstration of Read and Write. It looks like this video is just loading. So I will just take a moment. There we go.
And if you have any questions as we go, put them in the Q&A.
Once you have downloaded the Read and Write extension, it follows you through any website that you go to within your Chrome browser. To activate it, you simply click on the extension and the toolbar will drop down. Read and Write offers three different. Once you have downloaded the Read and Write extension, it follows you through any website that you go to within your Chrome browser. To activate it, you simply click on the extension and the toolbar will drop down. Read and Write offers three different ways to access the text-to-speech tools. You can choose to use
some technical glitches.
Well, let's talk about it while we see if we can fix that. Read and Write really is a suite of things that allow us to do many, many things. And the thing that I really like best about it, well, many things. First of all, anybody who is part of the TDSB, as we mentioned before, can use Read and Write for free. And you can, I believe, download it onto at least, or have it available to you on at least 2 devices. But might even be more, but 2 per person for sure. So you could have it on an iPad as well as a laptop, or a computer and a laptop. And We've got a question there. Does read and write work for Tcdb? Yes. I'm going to come to the questions in a few minutes, and we will answer all of those at the same time. So what it does for a student, it does many things, but in this particular aspect, when we're talking about text to speech, it hangs there. You can see, I don't know if you can see on your screen, that toolbar pops
Once
up.
you have downloaded the read and write extension, it follows you through any website that you go to within your Chrome browser. To activate it, you simply click on the extension and the toolbar will drop down. Read and write offers 3 different ways to access the text-to-speech tools.
So what happens when you're using it is that you can highlight a whole section of anything, whether it's a PDF, it could be a document, it could be, where else does it work, Catherine, that would be useful for a student?
So the big ones are really on any website. It follows you obviously to any website because it's a browser extension. In your Google Docs, it can open and read PDFs. And those are the big ones. It's also obviously in slides. It's across the Google Suite.
So what we love it for is because you've got your computer open and you want to read something. Let's say you're doing a research project and the website is very dense, but you highlight the particular paragraph that you want to know about and the computer will read it for you. And you can also choose different voices and you can choose different sounds, voices, speed, that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should mention that we will ensure that these videos get to all participants tonight. I don't know exactly why it's not loading. I have a feeling it's having a hard time with everything my computer is trying to do right now. In any case, I'm going to try it one more time if we can all stand for that introduction to the video, and then we'll just move on if it stalls.
We're waiting with bated breath.
I know.
It's a technology. I mean, it's ironic, right? We're doing assistive technology. Technology doesn't always work the way we want it to, but when it does work, and it does work often, it's very helpful. All right, shall we abort, Catherine? Move on?
We will move on.
I'm going to open up the chat box because I have a couple of things in the chat box. And we've got a comment. We're in Barrie. Could we get the read and write being in Simcoe County? Yes. And the question about that is whether your school board or not has a license for it that you can access for free, or whether you would have to purchase that. And we will have, we have a lovely handout that's going to come to you after our webinar that highlights all the technology that we're talking about and tells you where you can get it, how you download it, and what the cost is as well. So yes, you can absolutely get it. You could get it anywhere. I mean, in North America for sure. It's whether you're able to access it for free or whether you're going to have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. It's only about $150 per year, but it is a subscription basis, just as a side note.
And it's not just this feature that has many, 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 many features that we're going to talk about later on too. So we have another comment. We're having a lot of issue with Google Read and Write, recognizing my daughter's voice. She's 9 and writes her words very incorrectly, leading to frustration and rework for her. So that is sometimes a problem. That is true. But I think when we talk about dictation, maybe Catherine, you can talk a little bit about that as well. Trudy also wants to know, how would private school students access this? Again, many private schools have their own subscriptions or their own licensing, and they will give it to their students for free. And if they don't have it, then once again, you can purchase it for her or ask the school to purchase it on her behalf. And I have taught her OneNote Dictate, which she then has to copy and paste into Google Docs. Yep, that's not a bad idea. We will come back to the dictation part. And this is from Miriam. My daughter writes very slowly. She began using speech to text, but it causes her much frustration as it doesn't recognize a word, and she repeats the word over and over. Eventually, she takes her as long as typing, and she loses her train of thought. Okay,
So
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, and I do want to mention that as well, because dictation itself can be very, very frustrating, particularly for young students. Young students typically don't enunciate as well as adults. And so that can be very, very frustrating. The software, the technology seems to be getting better across the board, no matter which dictation technology you're using. I will say that when I teach dictation to students, and when I teach technology in general, we play by the rule of 3, which is if you try something 3 times and it's still not working, we move on to typing or just trying a different method, as you noticed with the very frustrating video debacle. So I think that part of assistive technology is building in those troubleshooting strategies, and hopefully that can alleviate some frustration. I also have found that when students repeat the same word or only say one word at a time, the technology has a much harder time understanding. Whereas if you say very naturally that same word in a sentence, it can typically understand what is trying to be said. And last piece of advice for that one is the technology is much better when you are speaking into a microphone. A headset with a microphone built in, like a gaming headset even, can be really can make a lot of difference because it eliminates a lot of the background noise. So that can be
I think that's a good point to keep in mind. Where is she doing the dictation, or where is a student doing the dictation? Is it in a very noisy environment? And how close they are to the microphone, as well as how they are enunciating. And sometimes I teach my students that they need to talk a bit like a robot. And if I have found that when we're having trouble, sometimes if they speak in a little bit more of a monotone way with less inflection, sometimes it is easier for the computer to pick up. But again, you got to look at the surroundings, and you have to look at the equipment that you're working on, because maybe the microphone that she's using, or the microphone that's built into the computer, just isn't sensitive enough to pick up her intonation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ruth. The next slide is actually is for you as well, because this is the power of dictation.
Oh, I love this one. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. This is one of those moments where I got to witness the aha of and the power of dictation and assistive technology. So I was working with a grade 5 student, and we were doing an assessment of his written expression. And, let me paint the picture. He was a grade 5 student. He was on the autism spectrum, on the Asperger's side of things. And he so verbal, so interesting, so creative, so many thoughts running through his head all the time. And he had amazing ideas. When we talked about I gave him the prompt: if children ruled the world, how would it change? And part of his issues were dysgraphia, which means that it was very difficult for him to hold the pencil, to create the letter formations, and to, of course, use his amazing fast thinking brain at the speed that his hand was writing. I've heard other people say, what is it, that you have a Ferrari brain, but a Hyundai hand? No offense to Ferrari or Hyundai. But the idea is that your brain is working so much faster, and he just couldn't get his ideas out clearly. Spelling is an issue for him, as well as sentence structure and many other things when he was writing by hand. So the prompt was, if children ruled the world, how would it change? And you can see how he wrote. These were his ideas. The world, I'm going to read it for you. The world would end. Satan, no, just beware that this is a graphic, bit of a graphic description. The economy's collapsing, I think. War, more war. not sure of the next line, and then money worth nothing. So this was after a discussion of the prompt. He and I had a long discussion about it. He had many, many ideas, and this took him a good 10 minutes to write by hand. So then I said to him, you know what? What if I want to try an experiment? Because you've got amazing ideas, but we didn't get all of those ideas onto the paper. What if we were to try typing it? So he was much more into that. So we took out, the computer, we started to type it, and I think we can see what he came up with next. So we took the same ideas, and this was typing without spell check. If children ruled the world, then a dictatorship would happen immediately. People tricked into handing over their inheritance. Kids would be killing kids, drug addicts. The apocalypse would happen. Don't let kids rule the world. Though that was his conclusion. So again, graphic, but you can see the difference between his written version, handwritten version, and just typing it. He even had proper paragraph structure. He had an introduction, he had a conclusion, he had general sentence structure in the middle. Okay, so then I said, okay, we're getting somewhere, but I have a feeling you have even more to share. So what if we use a dictation device? And he had never used one before. And we were able to create this. Let's take a look. So this is in literally 2 minutes. He held the microphone or the headset, and this is what came out. If children ruled the world, the dictatorship would happen immediately, and if not immediately, very soon. Most kids would be tricked into handing over their inheritance to older kids. Kids would most likely resort to killing each other and maybe even cannibalism. Some kids would most likely find drugs and then start to abuse them. The apocalypse could happen. My version of the apocalypse is a desert wasteland with not enough food or water. So don't let kids rule the world. Very clear where he stands on that. Now, subject aside, context aside, let's look at the change that it made. I mean, this was a game changer for him. And this was really the first time that he was able to get his ideas out in full sentences, the way that he wanted, and the power, the look on his face when we were able in that hour session together to start with, just a few words on the page leading to a full paragraph that actually made sense that he could hand to his teacher, and that teacher would understand what he was saying. It really showed what he knew and where he was coming from. And then, of course, the look on his mother's face when we were finished and he handed her the paragraph, again, subject aside, but the fact that he could actually get his thoughts on paper was incredible. So let's talk about dictation in general.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ruth. So again, just like text-to-speech, there are tons of different options out there. There are a lot of built-ins on our computers that are obviously free when you purchase. Mac dictation is pretty fabulous, and it can be used across quite a few different platforms. Microsoft Dictation is getting there. Google Voice Typing we really, really love. And of course, there's the grandfather, which is Dragon Naturally Speaking. And so we get a lot of parents inquiring about Dragon, especially because psychologists often recommend it in psych eds. I personally think that, and what we've experienced is that Dragon is a very robust program. It can do a ton of things. You can essentially control your entire computer without ever having to use your hands. So if you do have mobility issues, or if you have a speech impediment that the other dictation softwares, the ones that are free, can't pick up, then Dragon is gonna do it for you. I always suggest that families check out these other options first before going to Dragon, because Dragon takes a little bit of time to get used to. You have to train your Dragon. Your Dragon has to learn how you speak. And there is quite a bit of a learning curve. It's much, there's much more to learn, but it can do much, much more. But if you're simply using it to dictate a paragraph or dictate an email, the built-ins and the web-based options are great, in my opinion, especially if you give your computer a little bit of help by using a headset with a microphone, so that you can really articulate well. So we wanted to show this video, and I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed.
Let's see it go.
I think it just needs a moment to load. So I'm just going to try to be patient.
We'll try. That's a good, patience is a virtue, right? I'm just going to come back to something from the chat that Miriam was talking about, her daughter writing slowly, and the fact that now that her daughter's in, or there's a grade 4 student, that the other technology is now universal, as we've been talking about, and the student may be feeling discouraged because her typing skills aren't fast enough, or have caught up with her peers, as well as the handwriting skills. So that's a different side of things that is really, it's challenging to watch when your child is sort of getting the hang of something, but their peers seem to keep moving ahead. And I think that may be the time that you don't use the typical software or the built-ins, that maybe where you want to look at Dragon, where it's much more tailored, and it has a more robust ability. So maybe that might help that particular situation. And then we can talk about the psychology of it, which is a whole other discussion. I'm going to leave that to the end, and we can share some ideas around that as well. How's it going, Catherine?
Doesn't look like it's going to play.
Doesn't want to play? Okay. Well, why don't you describe
earlier.
it? Okay.
Yeah, so I was actually just going to pull it up to show the two different ways in this Google Doc. This is actually the handout that everyone's going to be receiving, so I'm not sharing any secrets here. But I did want to show just very quickly that if you have the read and write toolbar and you want to use dictation, it's available in there. Alternatively, as long as you're using a Chrome browser, they have a voice typing option. You can also change the accent that you speak with. So for our students who may have a UK accent, it's been really helpful for them because it can more easily pick up your phrasing. Let's see if it's able to keep up. I think my computer's having a hard time because of all the Zoom. But we'll just try. I'm going to try to say a sentence and we'll see. Text-to-speech technology is useful for students who need support reading, period. So it did hear all of my mistakes, but that's okay. I didn't censor myself. Exclamation mark. So again, it was able to hear everything that I said. I did say, oh, sorry. But, hopefully when our students are using it, often what we ask them to do first is have an outline, or rather they have done their brainstorm, they have organized their ideas, and then they're looking at those ideas while they're dictating. So usually the sentences are coming out much more clearly than mine.
There's a process to how we use all of the assistive technology, and it's not just sort of grab this and grab that. There's a real method to it, and each student figures out how it works best for them. One of the things that I like to do once you have dictated something is to go and use the readback feature so that they can hear that what has been typed was actually accurate. Mm-hmm. And again, it's part of a bigger process, and it's part of a set of stages that we use with our students on a regular basis, and they become very familiar with them. And so we may take a little technology from this one and a little from that one, and then put it all together in a way that makes sense to that particular individual.
Absolutely. All right, so the next technology we wanted to talk about is word prediction. So word prediction is something that we use all the time on our smartphones. So word prediction is the technology that gives us our recommended next word. There are two different types of word prediction technologies. One is phonics based and one is non-phonetic based. It's algorithmic. And so the one that is free is non-phonics based. So that is very frustrating for students who are just learning phonics and learning how to decode and encode words. And when they are just typing and the computer can't understand what they have spelt phonetically. And as a teacher, it's very frustrating because we can see that they are spelling the word correctly phonetically. That's when the phonetic word prediction technology is so helpful, because it can easily predict the words that the student is trying to type. So most of the free ones, not phonetic based. Most of the paid ones are. So there's Wordq, Read and Write has word prediction built into their toolbar. There's Got It, Clicker 7, there's Kurzweil. So there are many options for word prediction. We typically use word prediction for our very young students who are, they're just new to typing. So, they are a little bit slower because as students get faster at typing or they're using dictation, they do find word prediction can slow them down. So however, it is very helpful for students. I would say, even as young as grade 2 or grade 1 to about grade 4 or grade 5. It can be a really great way to feel empowered and to do something independently. So Wordq is actually a Toronto-based company. It was being offered within the TDSB. It's not currently this year, but it's a really great software that has word prediction technology, and it essentially floats around on your computer. And so you can use it in a variety of different programs. I'm also going to show you just a little snapshot of what it looks like in Read and Write. So when you're typing, if you just leave something blank, it'll still give you those predictions. If you started typing a word, it would also give you a list of 10 predictions. You can also customize it so there's only 5 predicted words, so there's less to look at. What's really fabulous about the Read and Write word prediction is that when you hover over the word that it's predicted, it will read it to you. So you can make sure that that's exactly the word that you were looking for, which can be really helpful for students. All right, so before we move to pre-writing tools, I'm just gonna pause because I can see that Ruth's reading some questions. And yeah, so I'll let you answer some of these.
I'm just going through. So, there's a little continuing conversation about the dictation and the frustration and how the technology is moving forward. My comment is that let's stick on that. We'll come back to that at the end when we have a little bit of time for an open conversation. And one person wanted clarification for what constitutes young students, but that would be grades 2 to 5. So we're good there.
Okay.
We can carry on.
All right, wonderful. All right, so next up is pre-writing tools. So we know that pre-writing is so important for students to kind of catch those brilliant ideas that they have, to make sure that they're able to harness those ideas into a paragraph, into their written expression. We have 2 different programs that we use. Both are able to create wonderful mind maps that then very quickly, with a click of a button, turn those mind maps into an outline form. We use Inspiration and Mindomo. I will mention that MyDomo is currently being used by the TDSB. So if you're a TDSB student, I do know that that is available to you, and hopefully your teacher, your child teacher is using it, because it's a really cool platform where you can work collaboratively. So this is what inspiration looks like. We love inspiration on the iPad. Inspiration online, their web-based platform, leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's really beautiful on the iPad. It's really tactile. Students love it. It's so intuitive and so easy to use. You can kind of see all of the wonderful colors and pictures that you can include. If your child has an iPad, this would be a wonderful tool to get for them. I believe it's under or in and around $10. And so what's really lovely about it is that they can create a mind map all on their own. And then with a click of a button, it'll turn all of their bubbles into an outline view, just like what you see on the right. And so
I think that's my favorite part about it, is that for individuals who really get that sort of big picture thought, they just have to get all their ideas out, and then you can start with your finger moving them around and organizing them. And then when it's all organized, it's just a click of that button that turns it into an outline, which is really what the teachers are looking for, because they want to see that progression, and they want to see that, step by step, piece to piece, and then paragraph to paragraph.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then you can use your voice dictation and you just get it all out there. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I use it a lot. And even for my high school students, what I found is that we just ended up writing entire, like quite a few sentences in each thought bubble. And then that hard part was over, because then, it's already in their outline. They don't have to retype that. They're not, it's not redundant in any way, which is really nice. So MyDomo, the benefit of MyDomo, especially with virtual learning, is that it's collaborative. It's a collaborative web-based program. So you just meet your instructor, or you can meet quite a few people in a mind map, and everybody can be adding to it at one time. So we use it with our students in our online lessons because Inspiration doesn't have that feature, to be quite frank. But we've been really liking MyDomo in terms of, it has a lot of the same features. You can create really intricate, beautiful mind maps to get the creative juices flowing. And then again, with the click of a button, you can turn all of those ideas into an outline, which is really, really empowering for students. So those are the pre-writing tools. Did anyone have any questions or want to know more about pre-writing?
There's a question about Inspiration, and will it work well on Mac or a Mac laptop?
Yeah, so they have a really great, a really great software that I've used a few times. I'm not as familiar with it, but they do have a software.
So I would imagine if you're using it on, if you're using it on the Mac or a Mac laptop that doesn't have a touch screen, then you would just move things around with your mouse, I would imagine.
Of course. Yeah, that's right.
Great. Let's move on.
Okay. So research tools and note-taking. So important as we get into those middle school, high school years. Research is a really challenging thing for a lot of students. And I find that, it's not explicitly taught at school exactly how to organize your research. And our students love being able to use technology to assist them as they gather and organize facts, write annotations, and generate sources cited. So I'm just going to go over a few tools that we use. Primarily, I want to show the read and write highlighting tool.
That's my favorite part of it. That's my totally favorite part. Hope it works.
So we'll just see. if it'll load. Dun, 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 dun.
I want to, as it's loading, I want to say also that the any of these pre-writing skills, the mind maps, the graphic organizers, these are really helpful for students with ADHD who have difficulty focusing or keeping their focus. And it allows them to come back to their ideas and add to them as they go along. So if they get off track, it's an easy way for them to segue back to the path that they were on before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again,
The
it's just one
highlighters
more
in Read and
tool.
Write
We're good?
are a
All right.
fabulous way for
Let's
students
see.
to stay organized while completing research. We often suggest that students choose a color for each idea that they may have or are trying to prove. As they go through the article, they can highlight based on those colors. And I'll show you how it's done. So first, we select the text that we want to highlight and then choose a color. It's very simple. The highlighters in Read and Write are a fabulous way for students to stay organized while completing research. We often suggest that students choose a color for each idea that they may have or are trying to prove. As they go through the article, they can highlight based on those colors. And I'll show you how it's done. So first, we select the text that we want to highlight.
Of course. Okay, so I will just to summarize the rest of that video. After you highlight the important parts of an article by clicking Collect Highlights, which is a little tool in the toolbar, it will create a Google Doc with all of those highlights in it. It also gives you the URL to that website so that you never lose track of where that information was from. You can choose to sort the highlights by color or by place in the article, depending on what you've used those highlights for. So it's a really, really streamlined tool. A lot of our students use it up into grade 12 and have a lot of success because they're able to keep their research notes organized. And again, we will send these videos out with our post-webinar email.
You can get them to work for yourselves. We're sure of that. But I would say even post grade 12, I know a lot of students who have worked with us through high school, they take these tools with them to university, and they are actually farther ahead than some of their peers who have not had the opportunity to practice this type of organization, executive functioning, note-taking skills in this kind of a direct way. And they've already had a chance to play with it and practice it, so they know what works for them. The other thing I've seen, even in the office, many of our teachers do a lot of professional development outside of the professional development that we do inside the office. A lot of our teachers take additional qualifications, and they have, at the end of the day, stacks of articles to read. And they will use these same tools in order to gather their notes, in order to create their essays for, their university courses as well. So continuing ed courses. There are many, many uses for them. And I think the thing that I love about it is that it will collect all the colors together, so that if you've been selective and used a legend and you know what you're looking for, that's all the things that are pink, all the things that are yellow, all the things that are green, they'll just jump together on one section of the page, and bingo, you've got your paragraph, you've got your topic. So I love it.
Absolutely.
I'm going to look at some questions here. Let's see. So we had a question about the Livescribe Pen, but I think that's coming up next. So hang on.
And I should also mention, because I think Miriam's also wondering about French, and never apologize for your questions. We love questions. But I didn't mention this, but the Read and Write toolbar can also dictate in French, and it can do text to speech in French as well. They have actually probably more languages than I can count on two two hands and my feet. So they have, you know, they have a lot of great options. And so for our students who are working in 2 different languages or more, they can use this technology as well. All right, which is, oh, if you switch to a different website. Yes, so this is one drawback of the highlighting tool is that you do have to stick with an entire article and then collect those highlights from that article before moving on to the next website, which is why that URL can be so helpful. So you can always go back in order to, you know, make sure that you got all the information you wanted from that article.
But if you're using the same color coding, then you should be able to put those different articles together based on the same highlights.
You mean like you could copy and paste? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't do it for you. No.
No. So we also, especially for our post-secondary, late high school students, Notability, Livescribe, and Otter are fabulous options for note-taking. So Notability, unfortunately, is only for Apple products, but it works really, really well. And I really, really love Notability. It's very colorful. That's what this screenshot is here. So you can, a lot of people have like the Apple Pen. So if you were using your iPad, you can make notes on articles. You can annotate it just like this. You can draw little diagrams while you're in class. You can record your teacher or professor. You can do
with permission, right?
With permission, yes, yeah. That's right. So Notability is a really, really cool tool. I've had a lot of students be really excited about it. If they don't have an iPad, the desktop version is equally awesome, and it's a really great way to stay organized as a student, because you know, staying organized digitally is a challenge. There's, you know, so many different places that you can save things on your computer, but if you're just using Notability for school, it has a lot of really great, you know, it keeps everything really streamlined, and yeah, it's a great program. The Livescribe Pen is also something that we've used with students in the past. It's super cool. How it works is it has a built-in microphone, so it can pick up lectures. It can pick up obviously what's going on around you, and so while you're taking notes with that pen on the special paper, it is turning that all digitally. So it's combining the recording, the audio recording, as well as the notes. And it can magically transcribe your handwriting into text that you can easily search. So it's a really awesome tool for a lot of students, especially students who are already writing by hand and they like writing by hand, but they want a way to access their notes more easily digitally.
One of the things that I have also seen it work for is if a student is using the pen and they're audio recording and they are using the special paper, they don't have to write an entire note. All they need to do is make a symbol of a point that they want to come back to or remember. So it is a step in good note taking. It's not where you have to stop. Like there's more that you have to do once you have finished your lecture. You have to go back and look at what you've done so that it makes sense for later on. But for example, if the professor is talking about what's coming up on the exam and you don't have time to write it all down, but it's being recorded, you could just put exam tricks and then number 1 and leave it blank. And then in your recording, you'll go back and it will shift it all together. You can go back to that place and find out what did the professor say when you wrote down the number 1. So it's a great reference point, and you don't have to take pages and pages of notes. You just need to keep some type of symbol or note-taking system.
Yeah, it's really neat. Okay, I just noticed the time as well, so I'm just going to kind of move us along.
Yeah.
So I'm sure many of us are already aware, but there's a lot of fabulous bibliography generators out there. We have been using Cite This For Me, which is a Chrome extension, and then there's also MyBib. As an extension, what's helpful about it is that you can just click save when you're on that article, rather than having to save the URL and do it later. It's really seamless and easy. I still believe, I'm a strong believer that students still need to learn, the reason why we're citing things. And so that's definitely part of our programming, is making sure that students still learn what steps are necessary and what information is important to have. But these are invaluable tools for a lot of students. And then very lastly, I want us to talk quickly about executive functioning technology. So we have a lot of students who are working on their executive functioning skills, and we use a lot of technology to aid them with that. So technology to help with organization, time management, sustained attention, task initiation, all of these things that are under the executive functioning umbrella. We try to find technological strategies to assist them with that. So just briefly, we've had a lot of success with helping students remain focused and avoid procrastination with Forest. And both of these are in-browser extensions as well. So there's Forest, and then there's Stay Focused. What Forest does is it sets an amount of time that they will be deterred from accessing distracting websites. So the student has to be an active participant in this. They have to say, I don't want to go to reddit.com. I want to, remain focused. And then at the end of a successful session, they will have grown a virtual tree to add to their growing forest. So it's definitely positive reinforcement. Stay Focused is slightly different. You are allowed to set a specific amount of time on time wasting websites. Once your allotted time has been used up, you're blocked and you're not allowed back in for the rest of the day. So again, this all has to come internally, because as we know, our children and our students are very tech savvy. They can figure out how to get around this, but it's more of a helpful external reminder when you already know what you should be doing, which is very important. And yeah, we've seen it work for students. And definitely seeing your adorable virtual tree pop up can feel very, very good.
Satisfying.
Yeah, very satisfying. And then some cool apps and technology that we use. There's Ruth Timed Timer, there it is. And so there are lots of digital versions of that as well, which can be really helpful for a student to see how much time is left for an activity, particularly if that activity isn't something they particularly enjoy. It can be nice to see, how much time they have left to finish. And there's also the Watchminder app, which I wish I had my hands on a physical one, but it sounds really, really cool, so I wanted to include it. It helps students with ADHD by giving reminders and vibration to messages throughout the day. So you
not a shock, just a vibration.
Yes,
not a shock.
Not a shock. But yeah, something as simple as just pay attention, as in this picture. But some people say, like, remember, like, hand in whatever assignment. It's just a quick little message. And I think it's under $100, and it seemed like a really cool way to help out our students who, a lot of students aren't allowed even a smartphone in class, and some students are too young for smartphones. So it's a great workaround to help students remember to do things. Is there anything that you would like to add to any of this, Ruth?
No, I think we're good. I wanted to let's see if we can get quickly to the math tools. I know we wanted to keep it under an hour, but we just have so much to say. So if you're able to stick with us, we would love you to stick around. We just have a few more things to talk about. And then, like I said, we're going to open it up at the end. So go for it.
Yeah, so this is not going to take very long. I just wanted to highlight that there are some really awesome math tools out there for students. So I particularly love Mod Math. It is, again, unfortunately only for Mac iOS. So it's just on the iPad right now. But it's so cool. So it was actually designed by a dad and his son. His son had dysgraphia, and so he was unable to show his mathematics in a logical, in a neat written form. So this is a program to help our students who it doesn't do any of the math for them. It just allows you to write in a nice, neat grid. It saves it as a PDF. You can just send it directly to your teacher. I've used it with students in the past who, really struggled for their teachers to see their knowledge of a topic. And it's so empowering to watch them be able to express themselves in the same way that dictation is empowering for written expression. This is a way to empower yourself with expressing your knowledge of math. There's
really helpful if you can't even read your own writing, your own numbers. That's often students will do something like long division, but they don't realize that the 6 is actually a 0, or that, the 7 is really a 1. And therefore they're incorrect, even though their process was right, but they just couldn't read their own writing when they went back to it. So
yeah, it's all jumbled.
Yeah. And also not just for dysgraphia, I think also for visual spatial situations where kids have a hard time lining things up or keeping things level. So it keeps things in nice, neat columns, and they don't have to worry about it. It does that automatically.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so one final math tool that we've been using is Equatio. What's cool about Equatio is that you can dictate math into it, and then it'll pop out in numbers and with the proper operation. So you can say 2 + 2 = 4, and that will pop up on the screen. So it's really a cool way to be using technology, to show your thinking. Obviously, so for a lot of our students, they have to submit assignments online, our high school students, for those upper level math and science. I've worked with a student actually in grade 11 chemistry who needed to show her formulas, and this was a really powerful tool so that she didn't have to write it out arduously by hand and then take a picture and upload it. It was just a really seamless way to incorporate it.
I love it.
Right. So I will move us to the next slide, and then we can answer any questions if there may be some.
I would love to open it up for questions. I would also love, before you jump off, to get you to write down one takeaway, one thing or more than one thing that you found was helpful from tonight. It's always great to share those, and I would love to know what resonated with each of you. So if you take a moment, put something. We seem to be in the chat, so might as well put it in the chat, and we can talk about them in a minute. And while we're doing that, I just wanted to reiterate, thank you, Catherine, first of all, for all of your amazing knowledge and for correcting me when I was saying the wrong thing. That's always helpful. You've always got my back. I love it. And to let you all know that we do provide one-on-one support. It's personalized. You can tell from the way that Catherine and the passion that Catherine brings to the assistive technology realm, how we use the things that we use and why we use them. It's personalized, and we really look at each individual student, and we start from wherever they're able to start. We also do group classes. So if you're not able to join us for one-to-one, we have a wide range of group classes, and they're small groups. They're only about 10 to 12 kids maximum. And we also do a test preparation too for all sorts of different standardized tests. All right, let's see what we've got. Well, Crawford says, very interesting. I love finding out about all the great technology. This is very new to me. Thank you, Crawford, for saying that. It's our pleasure to be able to share it with you, and I hope that some of it will be useful to you personally or to somebody that you know. Let's see. Sharon says, I have a lot to learn and review, and I will be interested in having help for my grade 11 son as well. My grade 7 son is already enrolled. Excellent session. Thank you. And thank you, Sharon. We would love to have another one of your children in our midst. That would be terrific. And the thing is that that's a really good point, actually, that it is overwhelming. And there is so much that we actually didn't even talk about. We just gave you the highlights of the things that we love and we use on a regular basis. So there is a lot to review. And what works for one person doesn't work the same way for another person. So you've got to give it trial and error, and you've got to give it enough time to really take hold. There is a learning curve with most of this stuff. So we want to make sure that we leave a little bit of breathing room around it so that we can try it and then tweak it and then come back to it again. Let's see. Alex says, son is interested in the read and write and the headphone for dictation. Excellent. I think that's the read and write. I mean, it's everywhere. It can be everywhere that you are. And I think that's the most important thing about it. And it's just so robust. There's so much that you can do with it. What else? Miriam says, I love the accessibility picture and the highlight feature and many of the other SW. Help me. What does SW stand for? Software. Thank you. I figured that one out. That we should try 3 times and then let it go if it doesn't work. Yep, I like that one too. And Trudy says, thank you, Ruth and Catherine. Very informative. And I will look at some of the programs in more detail. Really like the tools for doing research and taking notes. Great for my kids going to high school. I completely agree. And like I said, try them out. Get in there, dive in there, like go for a little vacation inside the software and see what you find. Just walk around and try it on for size. And Connie says, my younger son has difficulty printing and spelling, and the voice to text will be beneficial for him. Absolutely. So thank you, each of you, for joining us tonight and for participating with us. And, it's my pleasure to be able to share it. And it's even more exciting when we get the feedback that it's something that was useful to you. So I'm going to open up the floor at this point for anybody who has any further questions. If you have to leave, I understand. But if you don't have to leave, then stick around, because this is where it gets even more interesting. What do you think, Catherine? Are you okay for time? You good?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Everybody, somebody's putting your baby to bed. It's okay?
Yeah.
Great. So let's see. What have we got? Where should we begin? I think we've got, oh, thank you, Trudy. She says, have a great night and stay safe. And you too. Safety to all of you. Catherine, oh, thank you for all your questions. That was you, Catherine.
That was me.
And if there's anybody who would like to have a conversation, a little bit of a chat, we can take you off mute if you want to put that in the chat that you would like to say something. We were going to talk a little bit about the psychology behind using assistive technology. And I would say, it's tough. It's always tough because, we see a lot of kids who really feel isolated from their peers, and they feel that they cannot compete on the same level. And some kids are much more challenging to convince that it will be helpful for them. And sometimes when they've been convinced, or they're at least willing to try, and then they get stuck up against a wall because it's not working the way they want it to, or they think it's going to, it can kind of derail them and make them, feel worse. So how do we deal with it? What are some of the things that we do? I think the try it 3 times rule is a good one, because it gives some parameters to the work that we're doing. I think taking a step back and looking at, well, what is the main issue? Like, what is the most pervasive thing that is making it a challenge or making it difficult for our kids to be successful? And if we can peel away the different layers and maybe just start with one piece of technology and work from there. We don't want to dump everything on the kids all at once, because it's overwhelming, and then it gets frustrating, and then they lose heart, and it's, we have to pull them back. So I think one little piece at a time. and layering. And when you get comfortable with that piece of technology, then we can try adding the next piece. But we always look at where the kid is coming from, what are their strengths? If you're a really verbal individual, you want to get your ideas out there, but your handwriting or your typing isn't fast enough, or your brain is just moving too quickly to get it all out at once. So how do we streamline that? I'm going to come back to it in a second, but Catherine, do you have anything that comes to mind? I've got some ideas in terms of Miriam and her questions about that, kind of getting ahead and then falling back.
Yeah, I think it's about often my students and I, we have, those frank conversations about expectations and, what I guess what the goal is. And so, discussing those things together can be really empowering, and making sure that, the student is right there with you. And what do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy. And I feel that I know that students are constantly comparing themselves to their peers. I know that that's almost unavoidable, but just remembering to, celebrate the successes when they happen, and make sure that the technology is scaffolded. So it's not just throwing technology at a student and hoping for the best. It's really, making sure that they have all the structures in place and all the strategies in place to make sure that that technology works best for them. So
and the process, I think, how it's built into the particular task, because how you might use assistive technology for brainstorming may be different than how you use it for creating the paragraph once you have brainstormed. I mean, when we look at the best flow of things, right, we want to look at what is working for the student for that particular type of task. And then when are we getting, like, at what point does it become a roadblock and not helpful any longer? And then we take a step back and figure out, okay, well, how do we tweak this so that it's going to work as smoothly as this other point? I think another piece to think about with our kids is they have to buy in, of course, but it's also about making it part of what they do, without making it too, insisting that they use it. So they've got to come to it in some ways on their own. And also, the thing about most of our kids is that they are really, and so much of the software is quite intuitive. So they may figure out a way that is a different way to use it than we intended them to use it, but it works just as well. So honoring where they're coming from and what they're bringing to the situation, and getting them to be a little bit self-reflective, which, for some of our students is challenging, but giving them the language, having that conversation about what's working, what's not working, what's the part that's really frustrating here. Is it this part that's frustrating, or is it that part? And if they can articulate it, then maybe we as the adults can help them pull it apart a little bit further and then work on that particular aspect, and then pull it apart and build it back together.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments anybody have? Oh, there's somebody that said, did they have a cheat sheet? Did I just miss that?
Yeah, I can see it there. So a cheat sheet for the speech to text commands. It depends on which software you're using. So the Google voice typing, they do have that on a website. However, they list a ton of commands that I've never been able to get to work. But there are a few that always work. And they seem to be getting better, because I would say probably 3 years ago, a lot of the commands that they had listed, never worked. But the consistent ones are the punctuation. So, but yes, I can send you that link, maybe tomorrow. That would be, yeah.
I would say, so it sounds also, Catherine, that you feel that the Microsoft voice typing,
Google voice typing?
the Google voice typing is not as strong as the Mac, the built-in for Mac.
They're kind of comparable. What's nice about the Mac is that you don't need the internet in order to access that dictation.
Right, right. That's another thing that you want to keep in mind, is that your internet access has a lot to do with this. So if you're using it over the net and you don't have a strong internet connection, it's going to affect its ability to transcribe properly. The other one I would try would be Otter, Otter. And that's something that I know, there are different, again, there's a free version, there's a medium version, there's a professional version, and I've had some really good success with it. I've even had success transcribing a video that has already been played, like that from a replay from a video, and transcribing it through the video. So it's pretty robust. But then, like you said, I think that if nothing else is working, go for the Dragon and try the Dragon, although it does have a significantly longer learning curve, and you do have to train it. But once you've trained it, it's well worth it. Okay. And Renee says, I would say Microsoft Dictate is superior to understanding young voices to Google Read and Write. However, young students are required to use Google Read and Write and Docs at school. Yeah. Sometimes, it's just sort of a toss up of what's going to work in this situation. And part of being resilient and learning how to deal with hiccups is having to deal with the technology when it's working and when it's not working. So it's a learning experience in and of itself as well. Not always welcome at the 11th hour when you're trying to finish the work that you're trying to finish and everybody's overtired and ready to go to bed. However, all right.
I do just want to mention, Renee, I think that's a really interesting, like I'm happy to hear that you enjoy Microsoft Dictate, because I know that when I've used it in the past, I didn't love it. So what that means is that they've made a bunch of improvements, and that maybe I need to go back to it.
Maybe you need to review. Yes.
Yes. So thank you. I'll definitely look into it.
Wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time tonight. And it's been a pleasure being with you and sharing with you. And we will be, thank you. Who's that? Susan says, excellent webinar. And Renee says, I've been advocating this for my daughter. It was created for dyslexics. Yeah. Is that the Microsoft Dictate that you're talking about? Perhaps, I'm not sure. And yes, okay. And I would just say that, keep in touch. We're always available. If you have questions for us, if you want to know more about something, you can always reach us at info@ruthrumac.com, and it will get to the right person. We will be sending out a post webinar email where you're going to get a whole bunch of goodies, and also a request to give us some comments back. So we've had some lovely comments in the chat, but if you're able to, fill out our very quick survey, it's really helpful because it helps us improve for the next time. And of course, our main goal is to be able to provide the best information that we can. All right. So we have a question.
We're currently we're offering some one-on-one classes for students. We have a few different packages. So if you are interested, you can reach out to info@ruthrumac and we'll get you that information. We just have found that the classes, it's a bit trickier to show all the different technologies while staying virtual. And so we've opted for the one-on-one. One-on-one.
You know what? And I think it makes it more personal anyway, because each student is going to have a sort of their own needs, and we want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of that particular student, as opposed to just doing a blanket sweep where a student may or may not feel that it's relevant to them. So we want to make sure that we're getting to the heart of the issue, and we're able to work with what that child needs and work with their strengths as well.
Exactly.
All right. And Miriam says, any fun games to help with the learning curve for the tools? I would say humor. Keep your sense of humor and keep it light, and don't overwork it. It's kind of like a dough, a bread dough. You don't want to overwork it, because you're going to end up with something that is less palatable in the end. So sort of quick bursts. Let's try it out. If it's not working, that's okay. Let's leave it for today. We'll do an alternative. We'll use something else. We'll come back and try it at another time. But keep it light and keep it fun, because that's the best way that we're going to get buy-in.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful, safe evening, and hope to be in touch with all of you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.